All right. Good morning. Good afternoon. Just wanted to take some time today to really talk about the lonely leader. Have you ever wondered why they say it's lonely at the top? They say that for a reason. Lonely leadership can be a very lonely profession, a very lonely role, especially the larger the organization that you're in. The more people that are on your team, ironically, can cause you to feel that loneliness. And the higher that you go on an org chart, it seems to be the more isolated people tend to become. The people in the organization that may not necessarily be on your team or that you're connected with, or maybe even those that are on your team, but that you don't have that close bond, that close personal relationship with, they may start to make assumptions about you based on your title, based on your role, based on where you sit in the organization. And loneliness is one of those things that can really challenge you, and it can cause you to start to second guess yourself. It can cause you to start to question your abilities, question some of your decisions, and sometimes doubt your own judgment. It's really a challenging thing that a lot of leaders struggle with, that loneliness, that isolation. I've worked with leaders that had teams of dozens of people, had a large portfolio of people that they led, but they still felt like they were on the outside looking in. I'll share with you that in my most recent experience with working with a larger organization, there was a leader that I shared an office with. He was over the same territory that I was over in a large group. And so we found a lot of times that we were the only ones that didn't have someone else that was in our office that we had that kind of that close relationship with, that we could just be open and free and converse. So a lot of times we would go to lunch and we would have lunch. We'd have great conversations about work, about life. And one of the reasons why we were able to do that was, even though he was in a very high position with a very large title and a very large profile, and I was in a position that I had a larger profile than some, but not necessarily people who I had direct connections with that were close by geographically. We had that relationship of being able to just be candid with each other because there was no expectations. I didn't want anything from him. He didn't want anything from me. Those were both unique positions that we were in. So it allowed us to have that space where we were able to have that relationship and build that bond. So I want to talk to you about three key ways that you can stay engaged as a leader and connected, so that way you don't suffer as that isolated leader. So the first one is being intentional about the relationships that you build throughout your team and throughout your organization, and throughout your network of people that you work with. It's really important that you get to know them as individuals. You get to know them as people. You get to know about them more than just what they do on your team. When I work with leaders that haven't spent a lot of time really kind of diving into the people aspect, or some leaders that may either not have the experience or the comfort with going to kind of build those connections, or someone who's kind of from the thought process or the school of thought that you have your work people, then you have your personal, and those two things shouldn't mesh, right? So I'm not going to sit here and judge whether or not you should have quote unquote friends at work or real friends at work. I know that's a separate conversation. What I will share, though, is it's important that you do have genuine, authentic relationships with the people that you work with. Those are critically important for you to be able to not only lead effectively, but to not feel that sense of isolation, that sense of loneliness as a leader. I had a team that I worked with, and I didn't work close to them geographically. We were spread throughout the East Coast, but I was super intentional about getting to know each one of them on a personal level, understanding the reason that the value was there between us as individuals was going to help us as a team connect, was going to help us work closer together. So getting to know about their families, getting to know about the things that were important to them, getting to know about how they liked to be motivated, how they liked to be rewarded. Also getting to know what was the best way to connect and motivate them in order for them to grow in their careers and grow individually as well. When you do that, you're building trust based on the trust patterns of the people on your team, not just your trust patterns. So anybody who I've spent any time with coaching, and really I share this all the time, there's really two key ways that trust is built. And trust is the foundation of everything that we do. Trust is either built through credibility, or it's built through likability. So either I have to trust you and I have to see evidence of your work over time. In order for me to build that trust, I have to be able to buy into the work that you can do in order to trust you. Or likability is I want to like you as a person. I want to build a relationship with you. I want to understand kind of who you are. I want to have that bond that goes beyond the work that we do. And understanding how someone else builds trust is going to be one of the most important things that you can do as a leader to help to grow your team, to build those relationships in order for you to build that strong culture that you're looking for. That also allows you to get into the space where you can share your vulnerabilities and your experiences. Those things are so critically important when you're able to show the people who are on your team your path, even though they may not have gone along that path with you. When you share your experiences and you share your vulnerabilities, you share the areas that you struggled with in the past and what you've learned from them and how you've grown, that does so much for the people on your team to help for them to see you as a person and not as a position. That's another really, really important thing to take away, that it's really valuable for your team to see you as a person and not as a position. So that way they feel like they can connect with you on that deeper level. And what that really helps to do is that helps to build that culture within your team of candor, accountability, and trust. All right. So my second thing that I want you to really think about in the space of overcoming loneliness is recognizing the impact that imposter syndrome can play in that isolated, in that lonely leader feeling. A lot of that can come from the weight of the expectations that are placed upon you. And sometimes that's real and sometimes that's imagined. And it can really just stay in your head and occupy in your head. So thinking about thinking about the expectations and taking a step back and being able to really evaluate kind of what is real, evaluate what things you're struggling with. Those things are truly what can help you as that leader overcome that imposter syndrome. There's a Simon Sinek quote that I wanted to share with you that I heard a few weeks back, and it was like, wow, this really speaks to a lot of the experiences that I've seen leaders struggle with. He said, when all of your decisions are because you're afraid of losing your client, that will ultimately cause you to lose your client. And what that quote really means is it speaks to the decisions that come from a place of fear rather than a place of culture, clarity, and vision. And when you're operating out of fear, it is so difficult for you to have that clarity and that focus. And sometimes, you may want to appease a client, or you may want to, appease a customer. You may want to do something that makes you feel good in the moment, or solves the situation in the moment. But if it runs culture, or if it runs counter to your culture, or it runs counter to the ways that you want to build your team, think about the impact those things have over time. A couple other things as it relates to imposter syndrome: the fear of failure and the judgment that can come from others. When you do that, that can be a very isolating feeling as well. And you may not really know how you're doing if you're not consistently asking for and getting feedback. And then when that happens, you start to fill in the blanks in your head on your own. And that's often a very dangerous place, especially if you have any of those feelings of imposter syndrome. When you start to fill in those blanks, there's a pretty good chance that you're not filling those in with positive affirmations. Or filling them in with more doubts and questions and concerns and fears. And again, if you're in that space of being that lonely leader, it's hard to get another thought in the mix there. It's hard to get other voices in if you're not proactively going out and seek that. So that will help you to build that resilience and that self-belief. If you're frequently seeking feedback, not only from your leader and from your leaders, but from your teams. And it's a really, really kind of simple process. You don't have to go always through a really formal process, but just, when you have interactions with your team, when you're working with your leaders, just taking a few minutes afterwards and say, hey, I just want to get some thoughts. How was that experience for you? What are some things that you saw me do in this experience that either you liked, or things that maybe you think that I can improve upon? I'm really trying to focus on myself as a leader. I want to make sure that I can be the best leader so I can serve you and serve the organization. And I can only see things through my eyes. So the more that I can hear and the more that I can gain, that's going to benefit us all. Really, that is so simple to do, but it's also so powerful and so impactful. And you're going to get a ton of value just out of those conversations, because a lot of times what you'll see will happen is people are glad to give you especially if you ask for it. And the better that your relationship, the more genuine, authentic the relationship that you have, the better the feedback that you'll get. It won't be surface feedback. And that feedback can be good, or it could be things that you could work on. But either way, both of you, both parties in that exchange are going to get some value out of it. So that's a really, really, it's a kind of a pro tip that I would love for you to implement. And I would love to hear how that works for you once you get a chance to do it. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about as it relates to imposter syndrome is really kind of taking a step back and recognizing your accomplishments, recognizing what you have done. Really celebrate your wins. I'm a big believer in celebrating small wins, because when you celebrate those small wins, that builds momentum, allows you to grow. And it also gives you the opportunity to give yourself some grace sometimes. You know, we can frequently be our toughest critics, which will double down on that feeling of loneliness and isolation when we start to get in that space of self-criticism, and we're really kind of, you know, digging into ourselves. That can get us to a challenging place to get out of. It can put us in a little bit of a valley. So I want you to celebrate your wins. I want you to give yourself the grace that you would want from others, and also give others the grace that you would want to be given to yourself. I found in a lot of the leadership work that I have done and a lot of the clients that I've worked with, grace has been such a valuable tool to use. And it's a great relationship builder, and it's also a great level setter. You know, when your team sees that you're willing to give grace, that you're able to give grace, a fearful leader will think, oh, well, that means that they're going to take advantage of me, and so I can't be vulnerable. I can't show that weakness. However, an evolved leader, one who has a high level of emotional intelligence, recognizes that the more that they see that I give grace, that's going to allow them to trust me more. That's going to allow them to trust themselves more. That's going to allow them to be more creative, more innovative. It's going to allow them to maybe take a few more risks, educated and you know, risks that are going to be hopefully beneficial, but they won't be operating out of fear. They'll be operating from a space of power, because they've seen that you give that grace to yourself and to others. That is really one of the things that leaders who climb quickly and that grow quickly and that have teams that are very loyal to them, they are ones that give a lot of grace, because that's one of the things that builds teams' trust, and that's one of those culture builders that will pull teams together. The last thing I want to talk about here is keep investing in your growth. I told you I was going to share 3 tips with you. This is the third one. Keep investing in your growth, in your own development, and also in your community. So when we talk about community in this space, you know, I'm really talking about having people who are your peers, not necessarily from your company or from your industry, but finding other leaders who are at similar places in their careers, similar things that they may be challenged, regardless of the industries that people are in. The types of experiences that they have are often very similar, because they're people-based experience. They're having similar experiences with people that they're leading for the first time. They're having similar experiences with some of their leaders who may be connected or maybe disconnected from the work that they're doing. They're having similar experiences and challenges figuring out, now that I've achieved a certain level in the organization or a certain level in my career, how do I grow? What's the next step? So having a community of people who are having those same experiences as you, even if it's not in the same company, even if it's not in the same industry, that's super valuable for you, because again, it no longer makes you feel as though you're alone. It no longer makes you feel like you're the only one that's dealing with that. It also allows you to share and hear other leadership practices and best people practices that are going on. You know, when you have that community of people who are sharing, the more practices that you can hear, the more resources that you can learn about, more maybe podcasts that you can hear, or more articles that you can learn about. All of those things add to you as a leader, which then trickles down to the people that you're leading, and also your peers, your organization, and ultimately helps to build you. And then your contributions help to build others. Another thing that's great about having a community of peers is you have what I like to call a no consequence resource to go to. There may be some things that you just quite frankly can't say to the people that you work with, but you need a place for that to go. You can't always talk to your spouse or your partner or your friends about things, because they may not really understand what you're going through. They may not be able to really connect with it and really to the root of the issue that you may be having. You need that no consequence resource to go to to have some of those conversations. And that's what those communities will do for you. That's what having those peers and those connections will do for you. One of the things that I'm working on right now is putting together my next cohort of leaders. My next Leadership Accelerator Bootcamp is coming up really quickly. And so if that's something that you're interested in, please go ahead and send me either an email or a direct message on LinkedIn. Would really love to connect with you and hear more about where you are and where you're looking to go. And that community is a big part of what we're doing. Is we're putting together a private online community of leaders to be able to have that space, to have these conversations, to be able to share with each other, to help to pour into one another, to help to grow and develop yourself as an individual, as well as a community of strong leaders. Hey, have a great rest of your day, a wonderful rest of your week, and look forward to talking to you next time. Bye-bye.